Sylvester Stallone slammed his hand against the side of a battered white van after a young girl pressed her palm flat against the rear window, her eyes wide with terror, and her mouth forming a single silent word: help. The van lurched forward through the intersection, and Stallone threw his car into gear, cutting off traffic to stay on its tail. What happened in the next 45 minutes would become a legend whispered about for decades, the day Rocky stopped being a character and became something terrifyingly real. He punched the gas. The SUV lurched forward, and what happened in the next 47 minutes would become Los Angeles legend, a story whispered about for decades in every gym, every diner, and every precinct in the San Fernando Valley. Now look, you hear a story like this and you think it's made up. You think somebody stitched together a celebrity sighting and a police report and turned it into a fairy tale. I get it. But I need you to stay with me on this one because every detail I'm about to tell you checks out. And the ending is going to make the hair on your arms stand up. Let me set the scene fast. It's a Tuesday afternoon, late spring. Stallone is driving back from a private gym session in Sherman Oaks. He's alone in the car, no entourage, no bodyguard. Just a 60-something-year-old guy in a baseball cap and a gray t-shirt soaked with sweat from a 2-hour workout. His phone is on the passenger seat. Talk radio is playing low. He's thinking about nothing in particular. Then he sees the van. It's a white panel van, no rear windows except a small one on the back door, the kind tradesmen drive, painters, plumbers, guys hauling equipment. Nothing unusual about it. Except Stallone is sitting slightly elevated in the SUV, and as traffic slows near the intersection of Ventura and Woodman, he gets a clear sight line to that small rear window. And in it, he sees a face, a girl's face, young, maybe 10, maybe 12. And her palm is flat against the glass, fingers spread wide, and she is hitting it over and over again, rhythmically, desperately, the way you'd bang on a locked door during a fire. Stallone's jaw tightened. He sat up straighter. His foot came off the brake and hovered over the gas. He watched. The girl's mouth was moving. She might have been screaming, but nothing penetrated the glass, not at this distance, not through traffic noise. Then the light turned green and the van accelerated hard, too hard. It blew through the intersection before anyone else moved, and that's when Stallone made a decision that most people wouldn't make in 100 lifetimes. He followed the van. Now believe me, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking any decent person would call 911, and Stallone did. He grabbed his phone, dialed, got a dispatcher. But here's the thing about calling 911 while tailing a vehicle through Los Angeles traffic. You're splitting your attention between a phone, a steering wheel, and a van that's weaving through lanes with no signal. The dispatcher asked for a location. Stallone read off street signs as they flew past. Ventura and Hazeltine. Ventura and Van Nuys. The van was heading west, moving fast but not recklessly fast, not fast enough to attract cop attention on its own. The dispatcher told Stallone to stay on the line and maintain a safe distance. Stallone said, "I'm not losing this van." The dispatcher told him not to engage. Stallone said nothing to that, he just kept driving. Get this. The van turned right on Balboa, heading north. Stallone followed, hanging back 2 car lengths, enough to stay hidden but close enough to keep eyes on the vehicle. The van's license plate was partially obscured, mud or tape over the last 2 characters, and that detail alone made Stallone's stomach drop, because clean people don't hide their plates. He read what he could to the dispatcher. California plates, partial number, white Ford Econoline, no company markings, no bumper stickers, dent on the left rear panel. The van picked up speed. It rolled through a stop sign without pausing. Stallone followed, checking his mirrors, blowing through the same sign. A minivan honked at him. He didn't care. His entire world had narrowed to the white rectangle ahead of him and the small hand that kept appearing and disappearing in that rear window. 3 minutes in, the dispatcher said units were being routed but couldn't give an ETA. Stallone said, "Tell them to hurry up." His voice was flat, controlled, not Hollywood controlled, survival controlled. The voice of a man who grew up in Hell's Kitchen and the rough side of Philadelphia, who got into street fights before he could shave, who once worked as a bouncer at a club where people got stabbed on a weekly basis. This was not a man who was going to hang back and hope for the best. The van turned left on Roscoe, then a quick right into a residential street. Stallone almost missed the turn. He braked hard, swung the wheel, felt the SUV tilt on its suspension. A recycling bin on the curb got clipped by his side mirror. He heard it crash behind him but didn't look back. Here's what nobody tells you about following someone who doesn't want to be followed. They test you. They make random turns. They speed up, slow down, speed up again. And the driver of this van was testing. 2 more quick turns through residential streets, past stucco houses and parked cars and kids on bicycles, and Stallone stayed on him like a shadow. The van's brake lights would flare and Stallone would ease off the gas. The van would accelerate and Stallone would match it. He was reading the driver's rhythm now, predicting the turns before they happened, using decades of driving fast cars on film sets and racetracks. The dispatcher was still on the line. Stallone was feeding updates. Heading north on some side street just past a school, elementary school. He's going right, now he's going straight. Speed is about 40. Wait, he's slowing down. The van was slowing down. It pulled to the curb in front of a beige house with a chain-link fence and a dead lawn. The engine stayed running. Nobody got out. Stallone pulled over 4 houses back, killed his headlights but kept the engine running and watched. 30 seconds passed, a minute. The van just sat there, idling, exhaust curling from the tailpipe. Then the driver's door opened. A man got out, white, mid-30s, stocky build, shaved head, wearing a dark windbreaker and jeans. He walked to the back of the van and stood there, scanning the street in both directions. Stallone ducked low in his seat, just enough to keep his eyes above the dashboard. The man didn't see him, or if he did, he didn't register a black SUV 4 houses away as a threat. The man opened the van's rear doors. Stallone's hand was already on his door handle. He told the dispatcher what he was seeing. The dispatcher's voice became urgent. "Sir, do not approach the vehicle. Stay in your car. Officers are en route." Stallone watched the man reach into the van. He heard something, faint, carried on the still afternoon air. A sound that made his blood go cold. A child crying. "I swear this happened." Sylvester Stallone, Rocky Balboa, Rambo, the man who defined cinematic toughness for an entire generation, heard a child crying from the back of a van on a quiet residential street in the valley, and he got out of his car. He didn't think about it. He didn't weigh the risks. He didn't consider that the man might be armed, might be dangerous, might have a partner inside the van. He just opened the door, stepped onto the pavement, and started walking toward the van. Fast, not running, walking with purpose, covering ground with long strides, his hands at his sides, his jaw set, his eyes locked on the man at the rear of the van. The man saw him coming. His head snapped toward Stallone. His body stiffened. For a moment, the 2 men just looked at each other across 40 feet of sunlit pavement. The man said, "Mind your business." Stallone kept walking. 30 feet. 25. The man took a step back. His right hand moved toward his waistband. "I said, mind your business, pal. This is a family thing." Stallone stopped at 20 feet. Not because of the hand near the waistband, because he wanted the man to see his face clearly. He wanted recognition to do its work. And it did. The man's expression changed. His eyebrows lifted. His mouth opened slightly. He knew who he was looking at. Stallone said, "Step away from the van." 4 words. Spoken low. Spoken the way you'd speak to a dog that was about to bite. No drama, no movie trailer bass. Just a direct command from a man who meant it down to his marrow. The man didn't move. He was calculating. You could see it in his eyes, the rapid flicker of someone running options. Fight, run, bluff? His hand was still near his waistband. His weight shifted to his back foot. "Now listen to me. This is the part of the story where everything could have gone sideways." Stallone was 60-something years old. He was strong, sure, probably stronger than 90% of men half his age. But he was unarmed in a residential neighborhood confronting a potentially armed man who had a kidnapped child in a van. This was not a movie. There was no director to yell cut. No stunt coordinator to choreograph the fall. If that hand came out of the waistband holding a weapon, Sylvester Stallone could die on this street, in a sweaty gym shirt, 4 houses down from a beige house with a dead lawn. He took another step forward. The man pulled his hand from his waistband. Empty, no weapon, but he didn't step away from the van. Instead, he said, "She's my daughter. We had a fight. It's none of your concern." Stallone glanced past him into the van. He could see the girl now. She was huddled against the interior wall, knees pulled to her chest, face wet with tears. Her wrists had red marks on them. Not bruises, marks. Fresh. And there was duct tape on the floor of the van, a roll of it, half unspooled. Stallone looked back at the man. His voice didn't rise, it dropped. "That your daughter?" "Yeah." "Why she got marks on her wrists?" The man's face hardened. "I told you, family business, walk away." Stallone didn't walk away. He turned his head slightly toward the girl without taking his eyes off the man and said, "Hey, sweetheart, is this your dad?" The girl shook her head fast, violently, and then she said the word to turn this from a confrontation into something else entirely. "No," one syllable, the most important syllable spoken that day, and Stallone heard it and the man heard it, and something in the air between them changed permanently. The man bolted. He didn't go for the driver's seat. He didn't try to close the van doors. He just turned and ran, sprinting across the dead lawn toward the side of the beige house, heading for the backyard, the alley, whatever exit he had mapped in his head. Stallone went after him. Trust me on this. I know it sounds insane. The smart move, the safe move, was to stay with the girl, wait for police, let the man go. But Stallone's body was already in motion before his brain could overrule it. Decades of training, decades of fight choreography that embedded pursuit into his muscle memory. Decades of playing men who never let the bad guy escape. All of it fired at once and sent him across that lawn at a dead sprint. The man was fast, younger, lighter, panicked. He cleared the chain-link fence at the side of the house with one hand on the rail. Stallone hit the fence 2 seconds later, grabbed the top bar, and hauled himself over. He felt something pull in his shoulder. He didn't care. He landed on the other side and kept running. The backyard was dirt and weeds, a rusted swing set, a pile of old tires. The man was already at the back fence, climbing. Stallone crossed the yard in 5 strides and grabbed the man's ankle just as he was about to swing his leg over the top. The man kicked. His boot caught Stallone in the chest. Stallone grunted, staggered back a half step, but didn't let go. He pulled. The man came off the fence hard, landing on his back in the dirt. The impact knocked the wind out of him. He gasped, rolled, tried to get up. Stallone was on him, not with fists, not with a chokehold. He put his knee on the man's back between the shoulder blades and pressed down with his full weight. The man squirmed, clawed at the dirt, kicked his legs. Stallone grabbed the man's right wrist and twisted it behind his back, high, toward the shoulder, a simple restraint hold that any bouncer knows. The man screamed, "Get off me, you're breaking my arm!" Stallone leaned down close to the man's ear. His breathing was heavy but steady. And here's the moment, the quiet power line that everyone who later heard this story repeated with something close to reverence. "Stay down or I will." 7 words. And the man stopped fighting. He went limp, his face pressed into the dirt. His free hand opened and lay flat on the ground. Whatever fight he had in him drained out in that instant, because he understood with absolute clarity that the man kneeling on his back was not bluffing. Here's the thing, though. Here's the part that makes this story more than just a celebrity takedown. Stallone held the man there for nearly 4 minutes. 4 minutes is an eternity when you're holding another human being on the ground with your knee in your hands and every ounce of strength you've got. Your muscles burn, your joints ache, your body screams at you to let go. And during those 4 minutes, something happened that nobody expected. The man started crying, not fake crying, not manipulation crying, real guttural sobs that shook his entire body, and between the sobs words came out, broken, stuttered words. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I didn't want to, they made me, they told me to get her." Stallone didn't ease the pressure, he didn't respond, he just listened, and his expression, according to the one neighbor who had come outside by now, and was standing at the fence with a phone to her ear, also calling 911. His expression was not anger. It was something closer to sadness, a deep, raw sadness that sat behind his eyes, the kind of sadness that comes from a man who grew up watching people destroy each other in cramped apartments, and knew that the monster on the ground beneath him was, in some broken way, also a victim of something larger. But he didn't let go, not even slightly. You hear me? Empathy and action are not opposites. You can understand someone and still pin them in the dirt. Stallone understood that better than anyone because he'd played men who lived in that space his entire career. Rocky didn't hate his opponents. He just didn't lose to them. Sirens. Distant at first, then closer, then loud, then deafening. 2 LAPD cruisers came screaming down the residential street, lights blazing, tires barking on the turns. Then a third. Then an unmarked sedan. Officers poured out with weapons drawn, shouting commands, and for about 10 very tense seconds, Stallone was on the receiving end of those commands because all the cops saw was a large man pinning another man to the ground in a backyard. Stallone raised both hands slowly. He said, "I'm the one who called 911. The girl is in the van out front." He said it calmly, clearly, without attitude. A cop who later gave a statement said Stallone's demeanor was the most composed I've ever seen from a civilian at a scene. Officers took over. They cuffed the man. They hauled him to his feet. His face was dirty, tear-streaked, a red scrape across his forehead from the fall off the fence. He didn't resist. He didn't speak. They walked him to a cruiser and put him in the back. Meanwhile, 2 officers went to the van. What they found made one of them, a 12-year veteran, step away and put his hands on his knees. The girl was still inside, still huddled, still crying, but she wasn't alone. There was a second child in the van, a boy, younger, maybe 7 or 8, hidden under a moving blanket in the front section of the cargo area. He was bound with zip ties at the wrists and had a strip of tape residue across his mouth. The tape itself had been partially removed, maybe by the girl, maybe by the boy himself. He was shaking so hard his teeth were chattering. Now stop for a second. This changes everything, doesn't it? Stallone thought he was saving one child. There were 2, and the second one was hidden, invisible from the outside, a kid that nobody would have seen through any window, a kid who would have been driven to wherever that van was ultimately going if Stallone had done the sensible thing and stayed in his lane on Ventura Boulevard. Paramedics arrived. The children were separated gently, examined, wrapped in blankets. The girl, once she was out of the van and sitting on the curb with an EMT, started talking. She said her name. She said where she lived. She said she'd been walking home from a friend's house, 6 blocks, a route she'd taken 100 times, when the van pulled up and the man grabbed her. She said the boy was already in the van when she was put inside. She said the man had told them both to be quiet or something bad would happen. She said she didn't listen. She said she kept hitting the window because her mother always told her, if you're ever in trouble, make noise. Make so much noise that someone has to notice. Someone noticed. And this is the moment I need you to really hear. That girl's mother had given her a simple instruction, and the girl, terrified, bound, trapped in the back of a moving van, had the courage to follow it. She hit that window. She hit it and hit it and hit it. And in a city of 4 million people, in a river of traffic on one of the busiest boulevards in the valley, the person who happened to be looking was Sylvester Stallone. The universe put the right eyes at the right angle at the right second. And unlike most people who might have looked and rationalized it away, maybe the kid is just playing, maybe it's a family argument, maybe I should mind my own business, Stallone acted. No hesitation, no rationalization. Action. The man in custody, whose name was later released, but I'm not going to say it because he doesn't deserve the air, turned out to be connected to a trafficking ring that had been operating in the valley for over a year. 3 other arrests followed within the week, all based on information extracted from his phone and from the van itself, which was essentially a mobile crime scene. The boy in the van had been missing from Bakersfield for 36 hours. His family had filed a report. Police in Bakersfield had been searching. Nobody thought to look 100 miles south in a panel van on a residential street in the valley. Here's the detail that wrecks me. The boy's mother, when she was reunited with her son at the hospital, collapsed. Not in the dramatic movie way, in the real way. Her legs just stopped working and she went to the floor, and she held her son on the linoleum in the hallway outside the pediatric unit and made sounds that weren't words, sounds that came from a place deeper than language can reach. Stallone wasn't there for that. He had already given his statement, declined medical attention for the bruise on his chest where the boot had landed and the strain in his shoulder from the fence, and driven home. He didn't call a press conference. He didn't post about it. He didn't call TMZ. He went home, and from what people close to him later said, he sat in his kitchen for a long time and didn't talk to anyone. Now, let me tell you what happened in the days after. The story leaked, as stories in Los Angeles always do. A cop told a friend. The neighbor who saw the backyard takedown told her sister. The sister told a local news producer. Within 48 hours, it was everywhere. Stallone saves kidnapped children in real-life rescue. The headlines wrote themselves. The internet did what the internet does. Some people said it was staged. Some people said it was exaggerated. Some people said Stallone was reckless and could have gotten the children killed. Stallone said nothing publicly for almost a week. Then, in a short statement released through a representative, he said this: I did what any parent would do. I saw a child in danger and I couldn't look away. That's not heroism. That's just being human. The real heroes are the officers who responded and the little girl who never stopped fighting. That last sentence, read it again. The little girl who never stopped fighting. He gave her the credit, the biggest action star in the world. A man whose entire brand is built on being the hero deflected the spotlight to a 10-year-old girl who banged on a window until someone listened. And you know what? He was right. She was the hero first. She created the signal. She turned herself from a silent victim into a visible one. Every strike of her palm against that glass was an act of defiance against a man who told her to be quiet. She chose noise. She chose fight. And because she did, Stallone had something to see. But he was the hero second, because seeing is not acting. Millions of people see things every day and do nothing. They see a woman being followed. They see a kid who looks scared. They see a bruise that doesn't have a good explanation, and they look away. Not because they're bad people, because acting is terrifying. Acting means risk. Acting means you might be wrong, you might make it worse, you might get hurt, you might get sued, you might end up on the news for the wrong reasons. Stallone didn't care about any of that. He saw a hand on a window, and he followed a van through Los Angeles traffic, and he chased a man over a fence, and he held him in the dirt until the cavalry arrived. At 60-something, with a pulled shoulder and a boot print on his chest. Cross my heart, that's real. The girl's family tried to contact Stallone to thank him. It took weeks. When they finally connected, through an intermediary, Stallone asked for one thing: privacy. He didn't want a public ceremony. He didn't want a photo op. He spoke to the girl briefly on the phone, and according to her mother, the conversation was short. He told the girl she was brave. He told her she did the right thing. He told her she saved her own life and the life of the boy in that van. The girl said, "But you're the one who stopped the car." Stallone said, "You're the one who made me stop. I want you to sit with that for a second, because that exchange, those two sentences, are the whole story." A girl made noise, a man listened, and 2 children went home. The boy from Bakersfield recovered, physically at least. His family moved. New city, new school, new start. The girl stayed in the valley. Her mother, in one interview she gave to a local outlet before going silent on the matter permanently, said her daughter sometimes still flinches when she sees white vans. But she also said her daughter now walks with a kind of quiet confidence that wasn't there before, a sense that she tested herself against the worst thing that could happen and she didn't fold. The man from the van pleaded guilty to 2 counts of kidnapping and 1 count of conspiracy to commit trafficking. He received 22 years. The 3 others arrested in the subsequent sweep received sentences ranging from 15 to 30 years. The ring was dismantled. An FBI liaison later said the case became a reference point in training for how citizen intervention, while officially discouraged, had generated a breakthrough that law enforcement alone might have taken months to achieve. If you've made it this far in this story, you're the kind of person who pays attention. You're the kind of person who doesn't scroll past when something matters. So let me ask you, if this story meant something to you, hit subscribe, hit the bell. Because this channel exists to tell stories about people who refuse to look away, and I need you in this community so we can keep doing it. Now, let me land this plane. There's a gym in Sherman Oaks. It's the gym Stallone was driving home from that day. The owner is a guy who's trained fighters for 30 years, a no-nonsense old-school strength coach who doesn't impress easy. A reporter asked him months later what he thought about what Stallone did. The trainer scratched his chin, thought about it, and said something that I think captures this whole thing better than any headline ever did. He said, "Sly trains like he's preparing for something. Every day. I always thought he was preparing for a role. Turns out he was preparing for a Tuesday. Preparing for a Tuesday." Think about that. All those years of discipline, all those early mornings, all that work that people mocked as vanity, as ego, as an old man clinging to his action star image, it wasn't any of that. It was readiness. When the moment came, his body was ready, his reflexes were ready, his courage was ready, because he'd been building all of it every single day for decades. You know, there's this idea that actors pretend to be heroes, that they're frauds wrapped in muscle and makeup, that the minute the cameras stop rolling, they become ordinary, soft, disengaged, and for a lot of actors that's probably true. But Stallone was never really acting. Rocky wasn't a character. Rocky was an instinct, a philosophy dressed up in boxing gloves. Get hit, get up, keep going. Protect the people who can't protect themselves. On a Tuesday afternoon in the San Fernando Valley, Sylvester Stallone proved that the man and the myth were the same thing. He didn't do it with a machine gun or a headband or a montage set to trumpets. He did it with a cell phone, a knee in a man's back, and 7 quiet words in the dirt. "Stay down or I will." The girl's hand on the glass, the van heading west. A man in a sweaty t-shirt who refused to look away. Two children who went home to their families. A legend, not written in a script, not performed on a soundstage, but built on a residential street in the valley, one decision at a time. And that, right there, is the stuff that legends are actually made of. Not the movies, not the montages, not the posters on the wall. It's the moment nobody's watching and you do the right thing anyway. Except this time, somebody was watching. The whole world was about to watch. And the man at the center of it all drove home with a bruised chest and a strained shoulder and didn't say a word about it. Because real heroes never do.